Good evening, everyone. I'm Michael Lewis. As I'm sure you all know, YouTube has ramped up its communist censorship of the truth. This might be the last time we're able to post on YouTube if we choose to continue to provide truthful analysis. And to be straightforward with all of you, there's absolutely no way we will ever stop providing truthful information to you. So that being said, there's a couple of things I hope I may request from you so that we can continue our friendship into the future. So number one, please click the link below in the description box and please leave me your best email address that I could reach you at. I'm hoping to get their Rumble account, at least official Rumble account, up and going tonight. So that way I can email everybody and then we can catch up there. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and follow me on Parler. I'd like to thank all of you. I truly appreciate you. God bless all of you and enjoy the show. On December 8th, President Donald Trump held the Operation Warp Speed Vaccine Summit at the White House. Governors from different states, private sector executives, medical bureaucrats, pharmaceutical companies, and distributors attended this meeting. These are all the key players in distributing the vaccine to the American people. President Trump's administration will introduce at least two vaccines. One is a vaccine jointly developed by Pfizer and BioNTech with a 95% effectiveness. It will be reviewed by the FDA on Thursday, December 10th, and will be authorized as early as this Friday, December 11th. The other vaccine was produced by Moderna with a 94.5% effectiveness as well. FDA will review it on December 17th. At the White House summit, President Trump mainly gave instructions on how to distribute the vaccine once it's ready. Based on his America First philosophy, President Trump signed an executive order at the summit. This requires relevant departments to administer the vaccine to American people first when it's ready. Among all Americans, priority should also be given to those who need it most. That includes the elderly and patients with underlying conditions, as well as healthcare workers and first responders. Once the needs of Americans are met, the vaccine can then be marketed internationally. The executive order requires National Security Affairs to coordinate development of interagency strategy for the implementation of the entire process. In July 2020, President Trump's administration Department of Health and Human Services signed a $1.95 billion agreement with Pfizer for the purchase of 100 million doses of vaccine. In August, they also signed a similar agreement with Moderna for the purchase of another 100 million doses of vaccine. Pfizer and officials have logistics ready to be able to deliver 6.4 million doses of its vaccine in the U.S. once approved. That will be enough to vaccinate 3 million people. With Pfizer and Moderna combined, they are expected to have enough vaccines for 30 million people this December. What we know is that the 21 million healthcare workers plus the 3 million seniors living in nursing homes in the U.S. will be the first to receive the vaccine. This is the view from the federal level. However, each state will have its own priorities and ultimately will be the ones deciding for themselves who will be vaccinated first and who will be later. At the White House Vaccine Summit, a reporter asked President Trump why no one from Biden's team attended the summit. President Trump answered that we had to see who the next administration is. President Trump reiterated that he won the election. The day before, while presenting a medal to wrestler Dan Gable at the White House, President Trump also talked about himself getting a 2-0 in the political arena. Obviously, 2-0 meant that President Trump has won the second election now. President Trump has repeatedly made it clear that he is the winner. He would not leave Biden any room for imagination. This is also a sign that he is confident in combating fraud and flipping the election results. On the same day as the White House Vaccine Summit, Rudy Giuliani, the head of President Trump's legal team, who is confirmed to be infected with the CCP virus, delivered good news. He is recovering quickly and expected to be released from the hospital today. It's good news for President Trump's team. President Trump and his senior legal advisor, Jenna Ellis, were claiming that big things were happening this week. It's becoming clear what these big things will be. Just before midnight on December 7th, the state of Texas filed a lawsuit directly in the Supreme Court, alleging that 4 states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia, were unconstitutional in the general election. In my mind, this was the first lawsuit that officially went to the Supreme Court, also the fastest one to reach there. As Texas stepped in, it meant that the lawsuit became an interstate dispute. That will need to be heard directly by the Supreme Court. When voters in the United States learned of this, many of them realized that the actions of the state of Texas were not trivial. The primary issue alleged in the Texas case is that the corresponding 4 key states have unconstitutionally altered voting rules and procedures through state administration agencies or state courts rather than the legislature. They expanded the scale of mail-in ballots, thus violating the Constitution. Thus, Texas has brought this unconstitutional case before the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court found these states to be unconstitutional, the results in these states could be null and void. The total electoral votes of these 4 states add up to 62. That is enough to get Biden's electoral votes below the 270 threshold. Then the president will likely be elected by the House of Representatives, which is very favorable to President Trump. In addition, Senator Ted Cruz, the Republican U.S. Senator from Texas, said on December 7th, should the Supreme Court decide to hear this case, he will stand ready to present the oral arguments for President Trump. He was one of the Republican presidential candidates in 2016 and was once President Trump's intra-party rival for the presidency. However, he has been a strong supporter of President Trump's policies since he took office and is now willing to defend him at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the last bastion of the American Constitution erected by the Founding Fathers. In accordance with the Constitution, they are responsible for interpreting and judging important legal issues affecting the future of the nation. In the 2000 presidential election, the Supreme Court intervened to resolve the dispute between George W. Bush and Al Gore in Florida. In the U.S. Constitution, there is no requirement that the Federal College vote on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December. According to U.S. constitutional experts, the only confirmed date in the Constitution for recognizing a new president is January 20th after each election year. From now on till January 20th of next year, President Trump's team still has a chance to reverse the falsified election results. However, under the Electoral Counting Act of 1887, the 6th day before the Electoral College vote in December of each election year is known as the Safe Harbor Day. On or before this day, if the governor of a state is able to submit the certified election results to the U.S. Archivist for the record, then the result of that state is considered conclusive, and no ordinary dispute can affect the result. This year, the Safe Harbor Day is December 8th. After that, December 14th is the day that the U.S. Electoral College votes collectively to elect the president. On December 8th, President Trump's legal team issued a statement saying that the Safe Harbor deadline is a statutory timeline that generally denotes the last day for states to certify election results. However, it is not unprecedented for the election contest to last well beyond December 8th. Even the late left-leaning Justice Ginsburg recognized in 2000 that the date of ultimate significance is January 6th, when Congress counts and certifies the votes of the Electoral College. It is useless for leftist media to claim the election is over. President Trump's team will continue to fight. According to the statement, President Trump's team believes that they should have the opportunity to reverse the results of the election fraud before January 6th of next year. There is even an argument that the Electoral College Counting Act of 1887 is in itself unconstitutional. This brings us to another point. On December 8th, Just the News reported that 2 law professors, John Yo from the University of California, Berkeley, and Robert J. Delahanty from the University of St. Thomas, had jointly published an article on October 19th stating that the Vice President of the United States, who presides over a joint session of Congress, has the power to reject disputed election results. The 2 professors mentioned that although the Electoral College Counting Act of 1887 provides a safe harbor for states to certify the results, the act itself is unconstitutional because according to the 12th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the Vice President of the United States should open the certification of all states' electoral votes for public counting in the presence of members of both the Senate and House of Representatives, rather than a state certifying itself and then finishing the count. In addition, the 2 professors pointed out that, according to their understanding, the Vice President is responsible for both issuing and counting those final Electoral College votes publicly before Congress, and that if any error or fraud is found in the counting process, the Vice President should also take initiative to exclude fraudulent votes. There are people who disagree with these 2 professors' views. However, their view provides a legal basis for the vice president to deny certain electoral votes if he wishes to do. Now, for example, when he presides over the Electoral College vote certification in the new Congress. In Wisconsin, on December 7th, Vice President Mike Pence and President Trump joined forces to file a complaint against election fraud in the name of two individuals, themselves. They are the plaintiffs, and there are only two defendants, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The complaint alleges that the two committed election fraud in two large counties in Wisconsin, Milwaukee and Dane counties. They seek to overturn the results. This is the first time the public heard of President Trump and VP Mike Pence suing under their own names. President Trump's team says there are a number of big things happening this week, all of which just occurred on the legal battlefield. Let's also take a look at the battles in these state legislatures. On December 7th, Jenna Ellis, a senior advisor to President Trump's legal team, said they believe that at least one state legislature will be able to employ their power to select electors and choose those who are willing to cast their electoral votes for President Trump. On December 5th, in Arizona, 28 more Republican state legislators banded together to demand that Arizona decertify its fraudulent election results. In Pennsylvania, on December 7th, Safe Harbor Day, 9 Republican members of the Pennsylvania General Assembly jointly filed a lawsuit in Pennsylvania State Court alleging that the state of Pennsylvania, which is heavily involved in fraud, could not accurately certify the results of the general election. They asked the court to rule that the state's certification of the election result was invalid. What we talked about was what the legislatures at the state level are helping President Trump's team. Congressional Democrats recently introduced a resolution to vote on Joe Biden's confirmation as president-elect, but the resolution was boycotted by the Republican Party as a whole and failed to pass in a 3-3 tie at the Presidential Inaugural Committee. This made House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, a Democrat, furious, but there was nothing he could do about it. Beside the courts and state legislators being two major battlegrounds for election fraud, there have been calls from the American public calling out President Trump to establish an additional front. That is, using the executive order against foreign intervention in election 2018 to trigger the Insurrection Act, thereby imposing martial law. Historically, U.S. President Abraham Lincoln used the Insurrection Act to help the U.S. survive the perils of civil war and prevented the country from being split apart. However, President Trump has not responded to this recommendation. If there was a response from President Trump, it was on December 6th. Michael Kudre tweeted to ask President Trump to declare Dominion and Smartmatic a national security threat by executive order and to bar U.S. states and U.S. persons from doing business with these two companies. President Trump retweeted it and wrote, "Interesting." This is being interpreted that President Trump may have intended to do just that. It isn't about enacting martial law, but a tweet calling on the president to use the executive order to fight election fraud. It is the first time that President Trump has responded to such a recommendation. However, on the evening of December 7th, the anniversary of Pearl Harbor, President Trump's daughter, Ivanka, and her family visited the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial and took pictures of the Lincoln statue. Ivanka shared the pictures on her social media. Perhaps she wants her father to be as strong and resolute as Lincoln in defending national security. Or perhaps President Trump himself is already planning to do so. The U.S. Director of National Intelligence has already stated that there are signs of foreign interference in the election. Moreover, President Trump's legal team continues to emphasize that the Chinese Communist Party is the main culprit. On December 8th, Axios, a U.S. media outlet, after a year-long investigation in which it interviewed 4 U.S. intelligence officers, 22 elected officials, and political operatives, they uncovered a case where a female spy from the Chinese Communist Party infiltrated and corrupted U.S. officials. This case has gained the attention of the public, and people are sharing the discovery. The spy, Fang Fang, was very active in California's political arena from 2011 to 2015, gathering information on up-and-coming politicians in the San Francisco Bay Area and across the country. U.S. counterintelligence officials said they believe Fang Fang acted under the direction of the CCP's Ministry of State Security. In 2011, Fang Fang came to the US and studied at the local school in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she served as president of the Chinese Student Union and president of campus chapter of Asian Pacific Islanders American Public Affairs at the school. She was very close to the Chinese consulate, and many people commented that she was a social butterfly. Through helping politicians raise campaign funds and other networking strategies, she cultivated relationships with several US officials, even individuals that were closely connected to top secrets in the United States. During that time, it was also reported that she also had an inappropriate relationship with at least 2 Midwestern mayors. The most influential US politician she had contact with was Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell in California, who was a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Fang Fang was close to this legislator for several years. Swalwell's position gave him the ability to know state secrets. He has also been active in the Russiagate campaign to discredit President Trump. In the wake of these reports, some have already called on the House of Representatives to remove Swalwell from the House of Intelligence Committee. By 2015, Fang Fang found herself on the radar of FBI, so she returned to mainland China. It was reported that she has not been back to the United States since. The Chinese Communist Party has been reckless in doing whatever it wants to the US and the Western world. This includes its involvement in election fraud. That is why President Trump's administration has repeatedly employed tough tactics against the Chinese Communist Party. Well, that's it for today, my friends. Make sure to like and share, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe, and I will see you next time.